Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show, an amazing video podcast with sports stars, entertainment celebrities, and other great guests, combining one host who has no legs, one host who lives in Duluth, Minnesota, and another host who seems to never be on the show. But now, on to the show with Troy, Dave, and maybe even Will.
Well, welcome everybody. Hello. It is so great to see you or for you to hear us wherever we are. And I, of course, am Dave Stevens coming to you from my home office here in Bristol, Connecticut. And this is going to be a great show. I am so excited to have our guest on tonight and tell you a little bit about his life and share his story. And, of course, can't start the show without one of my co-hosts. So Troy Geary is also coming to us from Duluth, Minnesota. How's it going, Troy?
I'm doing great, Dave. I'm excited for this show.
And of course, another guy in Minnesota who doesn't make a appearance all the time. Will Stein is with us. Hi, Will. How are you, bud?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. I'm excited to learn about the journey that we have with our upcoming guest tonight. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right. Well, our guest tonight, of course, is Jim Morris, who was one of the most amazing stories that is unbelievable. It turned into a Hollywood movie. It was such an amazing moment. Let me take you back to what was probably one of the greatest nights in Jim Morris's life.
And is up and throwing in the Devil Ray bullpen. Jim Morris wearing number 63, just called up today, the 35-year-old high school baseball coach.
And I think he's coming.
It is number 63, Jim Morris, walking through the gate. And how about this story? A high school physics teacher just 4 months ago. He's about to make his major league debut at the age of 35. From Brownwood, Texas, Jim Morris trotting into the mound.
Jim Morris making his major league debut. I hope his high school kids out in Reagan County are watching.
Well, what about those kids? They had to hit off this all season long in batting practice. They must never hit the ball into fair territory. If they did, there's some good hitters on that club.
They made the playoffs last spring. That was a challenge that he presented to them. He went around. It's a strikeout for Jim Morris. Morris in his major league debut gets the strikeout. We go to the ninth inning. Rangers lead it 6-1.
And there you have it. So that is who we have as our guest tonight, the rookie. From his home, and Jim, I get chills every time I see that and look at that. So what are your memories of that moment of when you suddenly that 4-month whirlwind came to a climax and you were in the major leagues?
It's still hard to put into words. I was shocked, number one, since I'd never been to the big leagues. I was shocked that we got driven right up underneath the stadium to our clubhouse. Then I was shocked that I had to sign my contract before I could enter the clubhouse. Then I was shocked with the amount of money they gave me for meal money for a 10-day road trip, which was more than I made in a month and a half of teaching and coaching. Then I walked into a clubhouse where there's Wade Boggs, who had just gotten his 3,000th hit, Fred McGriff, now in the Hall of Fame, Jose Canseco, Roberto Hernandez, all these guys I've been watching on TV, and now they're my teammates. And then we go out and stretch, and I got Wade Boggs on one side and Jose Canseco on the other. And it's just, you have this dream when you're 5 years old, and I want to be a big leaguer. And then when you're 19 or 20, you think you deserve it because you want it, and it doesn't happen for whatever reason. And then you put that behind you, and then because of a challenge from a group of kids, it comes back when it's not supposed to happen anymore, and you get it at the age of 35. When that happened at 35, I think I respected the game a whole lot more than I would have if I would have gotten that dream at 19 or 20. It was just, it's beyond compare. It's better than anything I could have imagined when I was a young kid wanting that dream. When I walked in from the bullpen to go into the mound, all those smells of being a 7-year-old playing for a hot dog and a Coke came back to me. Popcorn, dirt, leather, all of it, all those smells came back, and you're just being that kid again, just in front of a bigger audience.
you
Yeah, describe
made
that moment you had when you walked in from the bullpen for the first time. Especially how special it was because it happened in Texas.
It was. I'd been gone. I've never been away from my own kids for more than a few nights for a baseball tournament. And so I hadn't seen them in 3 months. I got to see them. I got to see my high school kids for the first time in 3 months. My family showed up. People I went to college with showed up. People who said they went to high school with me showed up. They got old. I don't know what happened to them. But Johnny Oates, the opposing manager at the time, God rest his soul, let 150 people in the game that day that had ties to me. I mean, this thing, it just kind of grew legs as it happened. And so all these people got in the game that day because they knew me. And so it was this nice story. And I was back in my favorite ballpark in my home state, where 2 years prior, I sat in the left field stands thinking, man, if I could just play there one time. When I was sitting there with my softball team on the way to a state softball tournament. And then 2 years later, I'm playing on that field. And then, Royce could have hit a ball 9 miles. I wouldn't have cared. I got to pitch there. And so the strikeout was a nice touch. And it was just, the game has just been a part of me since I was a child. I mean, my dad was in the Navy, so the West Coast, the A's back in the early 70s, and then the East Coast with Louis Tiant and Ron Guidry on the, Yankees and Red Sox. And you wanted to emulate those guys back when you were a kid and trying to, and then figuring out, I can't be Louis Tiant, the ump's getting mad at me and stuff like that. But growing up with those people and then getting to be a part of that game, if only for a few minutes, that was just a blast.
And you talked about growing legs. Well, I took offense to that, but not really. But our paths and our stories are so similar. And you talk about this kind of field of dreams thing where you come out of this as a high school teacher. I come out as this legless guy. I used to work out with Madden. But there's something magical about the Rays and what that organization was like, and them taking that chance on you, and again giving me my opportunities with them. What are your memories of that organization and how shocking it was, how well you fit in so early?
They took me right in under their wing, and they sent me to rehab camp, and I thought I was there to pitch, and apparently I was there to lose homemade tortillas and Dr. Peppers, because after my first bullpen session that everybody watched me throw, they made me run, which I was not used to. I was used to making people run. And so Ron Porterfield was our rehab coach, and he helped me get back into shape. And I remember after my first bullpen session, I looked at him, I go, am I crazy? He goes, man, if I could throw a ball that was that hard and move like that, I would do it in a second. I don't care how old I was. And so right away, everybody just kind of took me in under their wing. And it was a big family setting, and everybody got along. And I don't remember there being any problems. And people ask me all the time, playing with kids younger than you on your way up, that must have been hard. Nobody ever said anything negative to me. It was just baseball players playing baseball, and everybody trying to get ahead, but everybody supporting each other at the same time. So I had a great time being a kid again.
So out of those players that you made the promise to, how many of those players do you still keep in touch with today? And what was the biggest thing that you learned from that promise?
Well, I stay in touch with most of them, and they've been a part of my nonprofit that we have, that we go into inner city schools and help them get their sports programs back on their feet. I believe that we get kids in between the white lines and we get them off the streets. And we learn to have team discipline, and we learn to support each other, and we learn to think about other people instead of just ourselves. And we survive much better if it's a we thing and not a me thing. And so they've stayed in contact. They keep in touch. It's hard to think now that those kids are actually older than I was when I went back to play baseball. The biggest lesson I learned, you better be willing to practice what you preach, man, because when I pushed them, they pushed back, and we all became better because of it.
Well, Jim, I know that we talked about, your career, and albeit it wasn't super long, but yes, you were there. So us through summaries of what it was like once you got past the oldest rookie kind of thing, and you were just expected to go out into the bullpen and perform and pitch. And again, you had a decent you had him, and obviously the arm thing came back. But that time that you were there, when you became a player and not an, what was that like?
I think that's when I found out that baseball is a job. and you're living out of a suitcase. And, you know, everybody wants to concentrate in the media on negative stories. And I can remember being at Fenway, and there are a lot of things I love about Fenway because that was where my 10-year-old all-star team got to go, and we got to watch Willie Mays when he was with the Milwaukee Braves play against the Red Sox when I was 10. And I thought that is so cool because, well, not Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. And so Hank Aaron was an idol of mine, and I got to watch him play. Carlton Fisk hit 2 home runs. Hank Aaron didn't do anything, but that was cool. I got a Hank Aaron ball signed. Not only did I get one signed, but then I sandlotted it and ruined it in the snow in Connecticut. And I got to tell him about that when we closed the stock market after the movie came out. And I found out that, you know, 35 years later, the guy is just as nice as I thought he would be when I was 10. And that really helped me too. I just think ball players are nice. But getting back to Fenway, everybody concentrates on negative stories. And so after our set at Fenway, and we're fixing to go to New York and play the Yankees, I'm out in the outfield and I'm calling my kids so I can talk to them before they go to bed. And before I notice it, there are 24 other guys out there and they're talking to their kids before they go to bed. And does the media talk about that? Absolutely not. And you got guys living on the road half the year and everybody goes, oh, baseball's long. Baseball's really long if you throw in spring training and then playoffs and how far you go in that and then getting ready and then trying to get back in shape or recover from injuries. It's a long season and you're gone a long time. And so for those guys that keep their marriages and their families together, it's work. It's not anything that's just a given. And so they have to work off the field and on the field to keep those families together. And they have my respect because it's hard. It's a drudge. And to play at the level they're playing at today, with all the analytics and stuff, it's a different ball game today. And so I found a new respect for the game of baseball. I know what it was like back in the day because I watched it. And then before me, all those guys that played and then changed tires because they didn't make any money, they don't have that problem now. But still, you had to be at the very top of your game every single day or the next guy's coming right behind you.
Well, we have picked your brain so far about what it was like to play. Obviously, we want to talk about the movie coming up in our next segment. Of course, what you're doing today and the powerful message that you had. We are spending some time with the legendary Jim Morris. Such an amazing story. And man, you don't get a lot of Hollywood stories that don't get changed up. So stay with us. Continuous. This is Geary, Stein, and Stevens.
Looking for shirts as a thicker guy can be difficult, but Fresh Clean Threads has you covered. They're designed with a little extra room in the stomach area, but still a nice clean fit on the arms and chest. They're also so comfortable that my girl loves to steal them to sleep in sometimes. They're easily the best fitting shirts I've ever worn. I get compliments every time I throw one on. People even ask if I've been hitting the gym more. Fresh Clean Threads fit like a designer shirt, but for a fraction of the cost. You've got to check them out.
Hi, everybody. Dave Stevens for the Geary Stein and Stevens Show at the Miami Marlins ballpark. And you know what? We get great stars, celebrities, and entertainers on our show, but there's all kinds of great programming and content on Your Home TV. Your Home TV is a free on-demand streaming service reaching global audiences. They feature family-friendly programs with a vast selection of topics and interests. Their platform ideally matches content producers, leading viewers, smart device precision, and immersive HD experiences, plus ease of transaction solutions for everyone. Plus, they've got great shows and content like A Moment of Zen, Financial Freedom, The Retirement Halftime Show, and Make It Happen. And they have all kinds of travel shows, food shows, great programming, and great content. So, for more information, go to yourhometv.com. Check out the Geary Stein and Stevens Show and all of the other great shows. Yourhometv.com. Tell them Dave sent you.
All right, welcome back to the Geary Stein and Stevens Show. Dave Stevens for Troy, Gary, Will Stein, and of course, got to bring back the legendary Jim Morris. And Jim, I know you're 59, I'm 57. Is it weird now that when you talk that people, they got to talk about the rookie? We're not rookies anymore, right?
I know, man. It's weird now. I'll go out and do a speech somewhere, and inevitably a CEO will come up to me and go, "When I was a kid, my parents drug me to that movie," and I'm like, "Shut up." It's just weird now to look at it, and people go, "Oh, that's a classic," and I'm like, "Oh, that just makes me not want to look in mirrors even more."
Well, Jim, before I let Troy jump in, I have to tell you honestly, because I worked at ESPN while you were playing. So it's like you were the story, we covered it. You don't ever think work for Disney that you should go see a Disney movie. Last night was the first time I've ever seen your story. And I knew about the story. I even read your book prior to that, but I'd never seen the movie. And I sat there and it holds up and I cried. And then the first thing I did was none of that could be true. And then I went through and I looked at your autobiography and I looked at all of the videos and the stories and things and everything down to the details. And again, before I let Troy jump in, the one thing I do have to question is there's no way as a coach, there's no way as a player that you showed up to that Tampa Rays tryout wearing jeans. Is that absolutely true, or was that just that one fake Hollywood part?
That was a fake Hollywood part. I showed up in softball pants that, let's just say, thank God Dennis did it with jeans. I had softball pants with my gut hanging over the elastic band. I was a little bit overweight at the time.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know he actually had a cameo in the movie as umpire. How unique of an experience was that, being in a movie about yourself?
It was bizarre because it was about 300 degrees in Round Rock. And we're trying to film this scene where Dennis is throwing strikes, except Dennis wasn't throwing strikes. And lunch is supposed to be right after this scene. And so I'm trying to ring this guy up, and I'm calling strike, and he's bouncing it up there. He goes, "I'm not even throwing strikes." I'm like, "Yeah, but all these people back here are saying they're hungry. Strike." And everybody just started laughing. It's weird being on a set where they film something, and they're looking at you like you have any clue whatsoever what they're doing. It was just surreal.
And as we take a look at some of the scenes in the movie, and again, the things that the little parts, the speech that you gave the players, all these things were actual. The town did get behind you to grow grass and all these wonderful things in a town that never had baseball. I mean, does it, after all these years, do you just look back and go, it's just not believable?
There are points when I wake up and go, have I been dreaming? And I think that I was the right person at the right time for that group of kids. And for whatever reason, we meshed together perfectly and we made each other better.
And to stay close with those kids, and, you know, they're responsible for your story. I mean, because absolutely, if they hadn't come together and done all those things, and it's like, you know, they were part of your success. They were kind of there on that journey with you. And it's awesome that town has embraced you. And it's still, you know, you guys get together. There's still pride, you know, just to see a Hollywood story that wasn't sensationalized. It's not based on you. It is pretty much, I'd say 92, 93. What would you say percentage of what actually happened is portrayed in that movie?
I think, true to fact, 85%. I think there are some small things added that, like the radar gun on the side of the road. I wish I could take credit for that. I wasn't smart enough to say, hey, that would actually work. It took the screenwriter to do that. But, you know, the small town, like the sporting goods store, that was like typecast after my grandfather's menswear store in Brownwood, was let people know that West Texas is West Texas. It's church and it's football Friday nights on the radio. And you better be in one place or the other. And that's how it used to be. And so they did a really good job. John Lee Hancock, the director, he knows his stuff, man. He likes to do it the right way. I didn't even know about the nuns until they started filming it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, because I'm pretty good at history. But he knows his stuff.
You and Dennis Quaid have a lot of similarities. You know, that probably more than you think you do. When he got the role of the Rookie, he had a couple of years of just kind of a lull, not getting really a lot of jobs. So he kind of had to come back with your story. And I heard you're still really good friends with him. Can you just talk about that relationship that developed from this?
Yeah. Russell Athletics was one of our endorsers for the movie. And as the movie was getting ready to be released, they had a big to-do in Vegas. And they put us in a room I think for 500, and there were like 10,000 people in it. And by then, Dennis and I had been together doing stuff in media and everything for about 3.5 years, and we couldn't breathe. And he works his way over to me. He goes, "We got to get out of here." So now it's just me and my friend. I'm not thinking Hollywood or anything else. And so we go out in the casino. Nobody's in the casino because everybody's in this little room. And so we sit down at the blackjack table. We're drinking water, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's playing blackjack. Literally within 5 minutes, there's like 10,000 people around our table. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're a movie star. I forgot." That stuff just kind of goes by you. And then I think, wow, to be in that kind of world, to be a Dennis Quaid or to be a Costner or to be a Tiger Woods and not be able to go anywhere without people just surrounding you. Luckily, I don't look like a Hollywood star, so I got to fade back into Texas and nobody really cares. But to be like Dennis. Another story about Dennis, the night he won the ESPY award, they were sending him to one party. They sent my wife and I to another party. And as we were leaving, we did all our pictures and stuff. He calls me back over to him and he hugs me. He goes, "I just want you to know that you've helped turn my career around. Thank you." And that's probably the biggest compliment other than my high school kids that I got was from him. And, through the years we stayed in contact. I went to his mom's funeral a few years ago. My wife and I did, and he's just a nice guy. He just happens to have made a lot of movies and lives in a different universe than any of us do. And he can have it. He's really good at what he does, and that's his thing. That's not my thing.
Well, he's written a great foreword in your book, Dream Makers. So if you want to get that, it's on Amazon, and we're going to pitch that a little bit later. But Jim, this book is it's very. It's real. Everyone doesn't know. A lot of people don't know what happened to Jim after the movie. They think I ran off into the sunset and great life. And I think we want to get into a little bit and talk a little bit about your peripheral neuropathy and your CT and Parkinson's and the things that you've had to overcome with addictions and things like that. Because we want people to realize that despite the things that you've had happen in your life, you've made another comeback, and now you're a rookie in your sobriety. And I just thought if you could talk a little bit about what this is like and this kind of a comeback, have now the successes that you're out there doing.
Sure. In 2001, the Dodgers invited me to camp. Frank Jobe had tightened, Neil Alatrosh did it. Frank was in the room. Tightened my elbow again in 2000. I got in shape. Frank told the Dodgers I was in really good shape. They signed me. I went to spring training. Before that, I went out to LA and worked out at Dodger Stadium, and I was either there or I was at the clinic working out with the physical therapist for a couple of months. And I got ready to go to spring training. They were still in Vero. And so within 5 days, I drove through Texas, saw my kids real quick, continued on. First day at camp, we do physicals. Pitchers go outside, we start playing catch, and in 5 days, all of a sudden, I go from lifting, hitting, throwing, running to being afraid to catch the ball. And my balance is off. I can't play pepper. I can't bunt. And I'm petrified. If I throw a ball to the plate, like Stanton hits the ball back at me, I'm done. I can't judge a ball. I bend over and it's in front of the plate, or I bend over and the center fielder is picking it up. I can't judge. And so I talked to Dr. Jobe about it, and we came up with arm excuse. And I called my agent. I said, "I'm quitting." He tried to talk me into not quitting. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm scared. Went home, got my kids. We went to Austin. We filmed the movie. Over the next 15 years, numerous specialists thought I was crazy. All these surgeries followed, and all these doctors going, "You got a nerve problem. We don't know what's going on." Then it turned into an immune problem. And finally, it turned into you have too many concussions. You have CTE. You have CTE-induced Parkinsonism, which turned into Parkinson's. And the doctors are going, "You're just going to get sicker and sicker and sicker, and you're going to be like these other people who just stare at the walls," to the point where my daughters watched film of me doing speaking engagements, and they were having to turn up soundboards all the way because I lost my voice. I couldn't button the buttons of my dress shirts anymore. I couldn't tie my tie. I had severe balance issues. I was sleeping all the time. My headaches were so severe. I didn't want anybody around me if I wasn't speaking. I was still making all my engagements, but that's as far as I was living. Everything else, dead. And the doctor's just going, it's just going to get worse. And so this is opiate time. They're just throwing opiates at me. I've got enough opiates. I could have gone and bought 3 new trucks. And still not working, not putting a dent in the pain I'm in. Think, I'll add my own thing. I got a biology degree. I'll do that. Started drinking vodka. And next thing I know, I don't remember Christmas of 2016, any of it. And so for Christmas of 2016, I got to go to rehab. And, my faith has carried me a long way. And my counselor was a faith-based counselor, and he waited a week to pull me into his office. He wanted to watch what I was going to do. And when he pulled me in, he sat me down, and it was awesome. Not only was he faith-based, he was a pastor at a church, but he also was a big baseball fan. He's been to every major league stadium in the country, and so he's got all these knickknacks and souvenirs from every stadium. And so I walk in, I'm looking at his office, totally impressed, and he sits me down, and he goes, "What went wrong?" And I said, "All the doctors are telling me I'm going to die." He goes, "Do you believe in Jesus?" I said, "Absolutely." And he goes, "So you believe in Jesus, so is Jesus in control?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "So what went wrong?" I said, "Well, I'm not trying to die, but I'm not trying to live either. But you said Jesus is in control. So he's with you." And I said, "Yes." "Is he driving?" I said, "No, I'm driving, but he's with me." If Jesus is with you, why is he not driving? And I don't know what that did to me, but it was like, oh, click. It was like a light switch. And I was like, In the meantime, during my 30 days of rehab, I'm watching everybody else go through unbelievable withdrawals. It's coming out of both ends. They can't move. I don't have withdrawals or DTs or anything. Nothing. And I've got people at home praying for me and family praying for me. And I go through 30 days, and that was over 7 years ago. So I'm doing great. And the thing is with faith, I think the devil tempts you, right? The first speaking engagement I have is like the day after I get out of rehab. It's in Minneapolis, for you Minnesota guys. And the group that's there, I walk back behind the curtain getting ready to speak, and there's like every liquor imaginable open. And they're like, "Go ahead and have what you want. Everybody's been drinking all day." I didn't even smell it. It was the weirdest thing, like, didn't even faze me. And it hasn't since. And so, my faith carried me through. It's going to be different for different people. Whatever, it's got to be something bigger than you, though. And for me, it's my faith, and it's my family. And it's not wanting to let people down. And it's not putting my faith in medical practices where all their deal is to make money. They weren't right. The only elective surgery I've had at 85 was to have my deep brain stimulator taken out in 2020 because I do not have Parkinson's anymore. My dopamine levels are fine. They did all nuclear radiation test, and everything is good. And so even the medical community was wrong. So I'll put my faith in something else other than the medical community. That's what I've been doing.
That's amazing. And when we come back, we're going to talk about where you're speaking and what you're doing and all of those positives. So stick with us for our final segment. Don't go away, everybody. This is the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. And, of course, I'm Dave Stevens. And you know what I'm wearing under my Rays jersey? Well, of course, I'm wearing Fresh Clean Threads. That's right. And, of course, Fresh Clean Threads are the kind of shirts that you want to wear because they look good, they feel good, and, of course, they don't cost a lot. And if you want to save even more money, type in the GSS Show code, GSS Show, at checkout for 20% off. They've got Henleys, tees, polos, all kinds of great shows, shirts, all kinds of stuff. FreshCleanThreads.com. And you know what? Tell them Dave sent you for 20% off. And for our betting friends, and again, I need to bring Troy and Will in here on these because I know this is called Betalytics, and I know what it's for, but for the people that actually use it like Troy and Will, you know, this is such a great service because unlike FanDuel and those places, this is your opportunity to go out there and make those unique bets, the parlays, all kinds of things. Troy, and explain a little bit why this is so much better than most of the other services. Plus, you get 20% off, or 25% off by using our GSS show code.
Yeah, they give you the inside scoop and edge with different ratings for different bets, so you could win more of them. Very cool.
And Will, have you tried this thing out yet?
I haven't personally, but I've gotten the nudge from Troy. It's like, hey, you make all your predictions all the time. See how accurate your predictions are compared to this stuff. So I'll check it out before the season. I'll compare my week 1 predictions with how these guys feel like how I'm going to do.
And maybe they'll make us rich, and we'll be on all of the big channels. We keep getting amazing guests like Jim Morris joining us. And Jim, I know I read in the book, and it's such a great story because I know, you know, people are always going, is it Jim Morrison of the Doors and all that? But you actually have had encounters where you've been on planes where people had your name. I love that story. If you could just share a little bit about what it's like to have that name, Jim Morris.
Oh my God. I was American Airlines has my frequent flyer number, and my wife keeps up with it. And we were living in Dallas at the time, and I was supposed to go to Palm Springs and give a speech, which is now why I go by James Morris. And so my frequent flyer number kept getting changed through the week. And my first class seat kept getting changed to a different seat. I like the window, it kept getting changed. I'm like, what is going on? And so I get there, and the lady taking my ticket, she goes, "You're already on board." And I'm like, obviously I'm not on board. I'm right here. And she goes, "But your ticket's already been taken. You're on board." I said, "Obviously I'm not on board. I'm standing right here. Here is my ID." And so the plane's already late taking off because this has already taken 10 minutes with her arguing with me about me being on board already, and I'm talking to her. She finally calls the person who was me out of the plane, who was also Jim Morris, who happens to be the political humorist who imitates like President Bush and stuff, who's also going to Palm Springs to do the same event that I'm doing. And he's throwing a hissy fit, man. This guy is a comedian. And I'm sitting there calm, and I'm like, "What do you want to do?" He goes, "I'm supposed to go." And I'm like, "Well, so am I." I said, "I got her number. Let me call." And so I call the lady in Palm Springs. I go, "You want the story guy or you want the comedian?" She goes, "I want the comedian." I said, "You're up. I'm going to church. See you later." And I call my wife and I left. And the flight attendant and the ticket lady were just sitting there laughing hysterically because I could have cared less. I'm like, I'm out. No airplane tube for me today. See ya. And just stuff like that happening. And it makes you realize you can get mad or you can giggle and just go on. And it's weird because I walk in someplace and I look completely different than I used to. And somebody will come up and go, "Are you the baseball player?" And I'm like, "How do you know that? Because I don't even recognize me." It's just, it's bizarre. Some people are really good at recognizing faces and stuff, even when they age like 30 years. I'm not that way. So yeah, being recognized is cool. But when you're with Dennis, like one day we were in Cleveland doing all the media stuff for the movie, and we get in the elevator, and I tell you, I don't notice people. The guy's got this great big Russian hat on. We get in the elevator, the guy gets off on one floor, and Dennis and I are still in there, and he looks at me, he goes, "You know who that was?" And I said, "Nope." He goes, "Robin Williams." I'm like, no way. I don't recognize people. I just go about my business and move on. But you were asking me earlier about what it was like being treated like in the big leagues and going through that life. I will tell you that the Rays media at the time was incredibly nice and accommodating. It was so cool working with them, and even all the security people. When it was They wanted me to stay out and sign autographs. I would stay, and inevitably all the security guards would come stand around me because I would stay longer than anybody. Because my feeling is, if I'm getting lucky enough to play this game, somebody wants my autograph, I'm signing it. And everybody was so nice. So I have nothing negative to say about the Rays. And now with the talent they bring up, homegrown, man, talented people.
I got one last baseball question for you. We all know the minors are taxing with the long bus rides and low pay. How close were you really to quitting and going back home? And also, I have a follow-up to that. What do you think what MLB is doing now to provide better pay and travel and accommodations to these guys? And hopefully, what are your thoughts on that?
I think they make so much money, they need to pay the minor leaguers more money because it's absolutely ridiculous because they're putting their talent and their life on the line as far as baseball is concerned every single day also. But they don't have the insurance to back it up if they get hurt. These big leaguers, they have something to fall back on. These minor leaguers, they don't have anything. And it's tough for them. It's a grind. And the trips are hard, and it's hard to build a team camaraderie when everybody's trying to climb on top of each other to get out of somewhere. So when a coach can really build that camaraderie, then you've got a great organization because the coaches are trying to climb too. And the great communicators are the ones who really have talented teams because as soon as a guy really pops up and is talented, he's going to move up and then leave you a hole again. So everybody's climbing and trying to move on. For me, I came really close to quitting because I thought I'm wasting my time. I had a coach in Fort Worth at a great big high school where I was going to go hold my job open. And I was going to be the quarterback coach for football, and then I was going to coach baseball. And he goes, "Get back here for 2 days." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he held my job open as long as he could. And then I missed that deadline. And then I thought, if I quit now, then all I'm teaching those kids is how to quit. And so I stayed. And boy, am I glad I stayed. And the next time those kids saw me was at the ballpark in Arlington. The next time that coach saw me was at the ballpark in Arlington because he came to that game too. And so I think we can all learn. It doesn't matter how young or old you are. We can dream big, and then you put that dream into action, you see where it goes. You don't want to wake up one day when you're my age and go, what if?
So Texas is really big on high school football. What do you remember about your high school football playing days, and what was your favorite memory?
I know that our coaches, if coaches today did what our coaches did back then, they would get thrown under the jail. Because our coaches, if they said, and our high school was like 4 miles away from the stadium, if our coaches said, you take this tractor tire and you run to the stadium, and when you get to the stadium, you better figure out a way to get this tractor tire over the goalpost, you did it. And there's no questions asked. You just did it. But we were in shape. We weren't the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest team in Texas. But we were outworking everybody, and we worked hard. That coach taught us how to be men. I miss that. We need that dearly. We were not going to lose. The question was how much we were going to win by, because we were going to outwork everybody. And we won a state championship with that mentality. We weren't the best team in the state, man. We beat Thurman Thomas's team for a state championship.
That's great.
We were more prepared.
That's awesome. Now, as we wrap up, Jim, of course, that movie, amazing movie. And like I said, if you've never seen it, it's worth watching. It's worth watching over and over again. Such a great message. And as I said, the best part is 85% true, which in a Hollywood movie is James is a motivational speaker, and you can hire him to tell his amazing story if you just go to his website. Jim, talk a little bit about the website and what you guys have to offer and how people can hire you.
Yeah, JimTheRookieMorris.com, and a variety of things we talk about. Inspirational, motivational. I think we need that more than ever now with all the divisiveness going on. Everybody's seen what anger and Oh, that's me with a little bit more weight added.
I'll go back to the better one then.
There we go. That's in shape. I tailor my speeches to whatever the group wants. I talk to high schools. I talk to teachers. We're going up to Kentucky. I'm doing a group in Kentucky this next week. And then we've been to Ohio, Michigan, Texas, several different school systems here in Texas in the past few weeks doing convocations. I've also talked to several banks. We're doing a real estate group up in Idaho in a couple of weeks, and a banking system out in Virginia in a couple of weeks. And I like to make people laugh, because if I get them laughing, then I have them listening. One of the biggest things I've learned through my childhood and everything I've been through, and you've read the book, so you know, I don't like talking at people. I like talking to people. I've been screamed at, yelled at, and cursed at my entire life. And I know this for a fact. You don't listen when that happens. If somebody screams, yells, and curses at me, I'm not listening. But if you talk to me, I'll listen all day. And so I've learned to do that pretty well. And I learned that from a lady in Canada who was speaking at a conference that I was going to speak after her. And she was supposed to speak at 2, and I was supposed to speak at 3. It was an unemployment conference in Canada. She went on at 5, and I went on at 7 for 1,000 unemployed people in Canada. I'm talking about baseball in Canada. And she had people laughing in stitches. And I went, comedy. And so then I make fun of me. I don't make fun of other people. I've done enough stupid stuff to fill up an hour easy. So I just tie my stories in with some of the dumb things I've done and move on. And dream makers right now is a big topic I go with, because I think the better people you surround yourself with, the better you're going to be. And so I give examples of the dream makers who have been in my life, Reagan County kids, my grandparents. And I think you build really good teams with that. When you have your family life together in life and you have that family together, you build a good team. And your work team, you have the best people around you. If you have one person who's a thorn in your side, and people go, well, what about that one person? And they're my boss. And then you hang around the really good people and have as little to do with that one person as you can. And you do that, and then you move on. And surround yourself with the other good people so that you guys come up with all the good ideas. And maybe eventually you push that person out, but you have as little to do with the dream killer as possible and have everything to do with the dream makers. And that has resonated with a lot of people, from high school kids through the teachers, through professional people all over the country and all over the world. And so it's something I never saw myself doing. As much as I was pushed down my younger years to never talk, I'm making a living doing it now. And that's surreal also.
God bless. And I do have a way you could raise some money, Jim. If you go to eBay, rookie card on eBay, this card is listed. It's some sort of rare type of tin thing. $695 this card is on eBay for. So
wow, you have to get it. I collect cards, so
it's got one of those 9.5 ratings, and it's got all that fancy stuff like that. But it's nice to know that Jim's card is way, 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 way worth more than let's say a Mark McGwire rookie card right now. So that is such a really cool thing. So we're going to wrap up, Jim. And again, thank you for being such a great sport and being a part of us and so vulnerable. Will's going to catch out, and Will, we'll see you later. I know Will has to jump off, so thank you for joining us, Will, and have a good night. And before I let you go, as a speaker now that this book is out, Jim, are people shocked, or maybe they don't want to hear that story? They don't want to hear that you didn't have the success afterward? I mean, do you find people like, wow, you were so vulnerable and so real, and I can associate with those kind of failures?
Yeah, you know who the biggest problem is? There are some churches who don't want that story. And they find out what I'm going to talk about, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's kind of shocked me, because we all have problems, and life is way harder than it is good. And I don't understand that. But I did have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
What was your dream like when you got it?
I still have tingles, and I'm excited that actually it's coming out in a documentary on Netflix in September about Mike Veck, the owner of the St. Paul Saints. And yeah, just to come out and be told that I couldn't play sports without legs, and that my dream was to play in Yankee Stadium with Reggie Jackson, and people telling this kid with no legs, you're not going to do anything in TV, you're not going to be a professional athlete. And to get to that point, that's why I say, I know mine wasn't to the extreme of yours, but to have everybody say I did something that couldn't be done, I thought about that so much watching your movie last night, that so many people said don't, and then at one point they said, well, why don't you just go for it? And that's when I did in '96. And there's not many guys with legs that can say they pinch hit for Darryl Strawberry, so I'm very lucky that I took a called third strike. But thank you for asking that, Jim, because I really did think about that last night, that moment when you walk out of the field. And my field that had 6,000 people, I didn't have the crowd that you had, but to have that, it was all about baseball at its purity. You weren't a 35-year-old rookie, you were a Major League Baseball player, and for a brief moment I was a minor league baseball player. And I thank you for spending that time with us, and again being so vulnerable to share your story. And as we said, that people can go to your website. Give it a plug one more time.
JimTheRookieMorris.com.
But he likes to be called James now, so right.
You want to lose those freaking flyer miles.
Yeah. All right, Jim. Well, thanks. And now that you're a friend of the show, we're going to come back to for the next revelation. There should be another movie about this comeback. You never know, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's rough. That's a grind. I never knew how much work movies were, man. Then they send you on trips and you got to go interview at 4:00 in the morning and put makeup on. I don't like makeup.
There were so many junkets that you were both on, which was highly unusual about it, was with the actors. So it was really amazing to see. My other last question, just spur the moment, because Costner never wanted a radar gun on his arm, and you kind of spoke about some of the not so pitches. Did you ever estimate what he was throwing up there when he was filming?
I'm not allowed to talk about it.
He's a non-disclosure. That's true. All right. For Troy and for James, Jim, we appreciate you. This is Dave Stevens for the Gary Stein and Stevens Show. Continue to follow us on all social media platforms. And, man, this show's a great one.
Yes,
thanks, Jim, for being a part of us.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you all. Have a great
Thank you for tuning in to the Gary Stein and Stevens Show. Follow us on social media. Watch us on yourhometv.com, or now we're on Roku. Download it and watch us. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time, America.